You know those moments when a character fails in an important role? There's a desperate scramble for any way to save it, any way to change the result of that saving throw that will lead to that PC's demise. The player searches their character sheet for any way to get a second chance, and there's a delicious realization from that player of their vulnerability. That delectable desperation, that musical cry for someone to save them, to offer another way out. And why, oh why would you ever waste that opportunity? Why not offer a deal? Why not take this chance to give your players exactly what they want at the cost of making everything far, far worse? Hiya! I'm Ink, they, them pronouns, and welcome to the Nook. This is a series I call Dungeon Deck, where we talk about tabletop RPGs and fantasy, as well as make strange monsters and NPCs, including a creature card like these, for you to use at your table. And this week, we're going to be talking about Deals with the Devil as a tool for DMs. Then we'll take an example scenario and make a monster that can spawn from that deal. Now, with that all out of the way, let's get started. So, first off, devil deals are quite a simple concept. At an important moment when the players roll low, you or the players can offer to bargain out of character to turn a failure into a success. But they must pay a narrative cost. It's a tool to be used rarely, but when it's used well and at the right time, it can lead to a huge moment that you and your players will remember for a very long time. Now, as a GM, your end of the deal takes a lot of work to do well, but I've found 3 guiding rules to help me in these scenarios. First, give the players the spirit of what they want, not just the specific wording of what they say. But if it's better to not only have a partial success, at least be specific on what parts of the action fail. Don't remove or lessen the success the players pay for without getting their consent. As a general example, saying, "That chest you just made a deal with me to open never had any treasure in it," is never a good phrase to say. However, by saying, "You can open the chest, but something inside will break," you can create this difficult choice. Rule 2. Be vague but accurate when describing the consequences. Say, "Bard, someone will spot you while you escape," instead of, "The Duke will see you run from his wife's chambers." That lets the players make the deal outside of their narrative and then only learn the true ramifications just as their character realizes it, and create this wonderful moment of horror where they just realize, "Oh crap, I paid way too much for this." Third rule. Try to relate the consequences to the deal's success. For example, to the fighter in a heated battle, say, "You survived the death saving throw, but you will be unconscious and seem like you're dead for over a day." Then if they agree, you can say, "You wake up stripped naked and taste the dirt in your mouth as you are about to be buried in a mass grave." This allows the narrative to flow freely and give players a true out of the frying pan and into the fire feeling. So overall, these rules help a lot when making deals in my games, and can help figure out what to offer and give as a price for the players making these deals. Now, let's get to the real meat, the example deal and monster that you can use as a consequence of that deal. First off, what kind of deal are we making? What's a role so important that you could make a monster manifest from just guaranteeing its success? Well, how about reviving from the dead? Now, D&D 5th edition does not have roles to determine the success of their resurrection spell, or really any of their spells of that similar nature. They just work. Some other systems, though, have roles to determine their levels of success, and this idea leans more in that direction. But if you're playing 5th edition, you can also present this deal when the caster doesn't have enough spell slots or the required components to complete the spell in time. Whatever the reasons, there's a failure to revive someone. Now, The players want to guarantee the success. What can we offer as the consequences? Of course, saying, yeah, there's going to be a monster revived, but how can we justify that? Well, how about the revival is forced through, not with an accurate ritual, but just pure magical force. Caster, you would burn through all of your magic and can only cast the most basics of spells until you rest for a day or more. On top of that, the Wild Blast of Power not only revives the original target, but it will animate all the dead humanoids in the area into one body. Finally, 2 souls instead of 1 are called back into the land of the living. Your original target will still be revived, of course, but that second soul then will go straight into that amalgam body that was just reanimated. And then you'll be able to describe a warped imitation of life, a flesh golem, but not quite, as an intelligent soul controls the body. So this sets up a few things for the scene if they agree to it. First off, you have a disoriented, recently dead NPC or player figuring out what the heck's going on. The person who casted the spell is completely exhausted, and then there's some kind of gigantic zombie thing building itself out of all the nearby corpses, because of course there would be a bunch of corpses nearby, whether this is a battlefield or crypt. Then, as your party is gearing up to face or run from this thing, you ask for a roll to recognize or remember someone. This is the real twist of the knife that makes this the devil's deal. If anyone succeeds that roll, they realize just who the second soul that came back is. It would be one of their old enemies brought back from their grave by the party's own actions. Then the party's choice of whether to run or fight becomes that much harder. This person is a threat, so the party should run. But if they run, this threat, who is clearly not used to the body yet, gets away and can become a huge issue. Then they can start to wonder, should we have just let the original outcome stand? Should we have actually made this deal? And that is exactly what you want in a devil's deal. Curl the monkey's paw in just the right way so the party feels like they have avoided one set of consequences by running face first into a huge set of other ones. Now, let's figure out what we'll put on that creature card. First off will be the name. We already mentioned that it's like a flesh golem, but has a soul from beyond the grave. It certainly seems to have human-like traits, but doesn't really fill the whole role completely. There's actually one classical monster that fits this almost a human idea. A homunculus. So let's call our creature an aberrant homunculus. Next are the abilities. These will help illustrate what our homunculus can do and how it serves as the consequences for our players' avoidance of failure. Chimera of humanoids. When reviving someone on a battlefield or in a crypt, there's going to be a whole lot of different species of people around. So imagine what would happen if someone combined aspects of a bunch of different races onto one character sheet, abilities and all. And that's what you get here. Aberrations lore. This creature could have only been brought into this world through a major screw up, something going terribly wrong, and through this wrongness, it's gained insight into not only how bodies work or don't work, but also the magic that brought this creature into being. Imagine if this creature got all the spells of the original ritual's caster, but warped them into their most horrifying possible versions. And finally, villainous soul. We get to the kicker. This monster is not only something to deal with in the moment, but a return of someone who really shouldn't come back. This villain can certainly be something from the party's past, or if you want, it can be an ancient evil told about in legends. Either way, the skills that they built in life come back with their soul and become tools to face your party with now. So now we have the stats. We'll be using the D&D 5th edition stat spread, but the numbers will refer to the modifiers rather than the stats themselves. Strength, 4. Constitution, 3. Dexterity, 0. Intelligence, 1. Wisdom, 1. Charisma, 1. These stats are here to represent the homunculus in the moment of its rebirth, as a thrashing, smashing monstrosity, powerful but out of control. The soul hasn't fully grasped the body yet, and it's struggling to understand the new form that it inhabits. So it's hard to coordinate or think. However, there is still that glint. So maybe the homunculus can speak a few taunting words between the moaning howls as it relearns how to use vocal cords. And finally, we have the core phrases. These are a set of statements or questions that help characterize monsters and guide DMs on how to play these creatures in a unique and interesting way. These are again geared more towards the initial revival and will serve as a baseline to be replaced, especially if your table has someone particularly consequential to return. Escape and learn. This is the primary goal of the soul in this new body. Get out so they can start figuring out the body as well as how the world changed when they were gone. That's how they will become a real threat. The plots begin again. The very second that the soul understands the body and can think straight, they're going to continue the plans that were left unfinished from when they were alive. Or maybe they can even make new ones. What new understanding could be gleaned from coming back from the dead and learning from their failures? How much stronger could they become from that understanding? There are no third chances. This chance revival was one heck of a lucky break for that soul. So making the best of this opportunity is extremely important. In their mind, I anticipate they would say, no huge risks this time. Be careful. And now that we have all the pieces together and the art is all finished, we can pull this thing together into a full creature card. And here it is, the Aberrant Homunculus, a representation of the consequences that can be felt from reaching out to the DM for a devil's deal. Feel free to screenshot this as to use at your own tables for your own devil's deals. And don't you dare miss the opportunity of those delicious moments of desperation from your players. Now tell me, how do you think you would use this creature for your deals? Give your answers in the comments below. The most interesting ones will get a heart, and the coolest one of all will get pinned at the top. Next, if this creature seems cool and you'll want to see more like it, you can just give me your like and subscribe. You'll learn the consequences of those actions later. I also have another video where a similarly eldritch monster gives the players a quest. Link to that right now. And with that, let's bring this video to a close. For those of you with dark skies, good night. And if you have bright days, good morning. Whatever part of the world you're from, I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Goodbye.